The call came at 3:47 a.m. I knew before answering that my carefully constructed life in Boston was about to shatter. 15 years of distance, 15 years of silence, 15 years of waiting. And now, finally, it was time. "Riley, honey," my grandmother's voice cracked through the phone, trembling but laced with something I couldn't quite place. Not just grief. Something sharper. "Your daddy's gone. You need to come home now, baby, before everything disappears." Before everything disappears. Not before the funeral. Not to say goodbye. Those 4 words told me everything I needed to know. Shane had already started. I sat up in my king-sized bed, surrounded by the trappings of my success. Corner office downtown. Partnership track at one of Boston's most prestigious accounting firms. A pristine apartment overlooking the Charles River. Everything I'd built to escape the nightmare of Maple Street. But as I stared at my reflection in the darkened window, I saw not the polished professional I'd become, but the broken 16-year-old girl who'd fled Columbus, Ohio, with nothing but a backpack and a promise to herself. I would come back, and when I did, I would burn it all down. I didn't pack clothes. Instead, I pulled out the leather briefcase I'd kept hidden in the back of my closet for years. Inside were copies of documents I'd been collecting since I was old enough to understand what Shane was doing. Property deeds, mortgage papers, marriage certificates, bank statements I'd photographed with a disposable camera when I was 17. My father had taught me one thing before he deployed for the last time. "Riley, baby girl, always keep records. Paper doesn't lie like people do." The hatred that flooded through me felt almost comforting, like slipping into a familiar coat. I'd nursed it for 15 years, fed it with every birthday he missed because Shane wouldn't let Mom call, every graduation photo that sat unsent. Every night I'd cried myself to sleep in foster care because going home meant watching my mother choose her monster over her daughter. As I booked the first flight to Columbus, my hands didn't shake. My jaw set with determination that had been building for over a decade. Maple Street was about to learn what happened when you pushed Riley Matthews too far. The funeral was exactly as I'd imagined it. Small, sad, cheap. My father, decorated Marine veteran, reduced to a quick service in a cramped funeral home that smelled of artificial flowers and old carpet. I stood at the back, watching Shane play the grieving stepson, his performance Oscar-worthy if you didn't notice the way his eyes kept darting to his phone, probably checking betting apps. He'd aged badly. The handsome charm that had fooled my mother 20 years ago had curdled into bloated arrogance. His suit was rumpled, stained at the collar, and when he spoke to mourners, I could smell the whiskey from across the room. But it was my mother who broke my heart all over again. Lydia Matthews, who'd once been a vibrant teacher with the brightest smile in Columbus, now looked like a ghost. Thin, pale, her eyes downcast, flinching every time Shane moved near her. She hadn't looked at me once since I'd arrived. Not once. After the burial, as people dispersed to their cars under gray Ohio skies, Shane approached me. That's when I saw it. The same predatory gleam I remembered from my teenage years, when he'd corner me in the kitchen, his breath hot with alcohol, his hands grabbing places they shouldn't. Well. Little Riley came crawling back. His smile was all teeth, no warmth. "Thought you were too good for us, princess. Off in your fancy city, playing important?" I didn't move, didn't blink. Just met his eyes with all the ice I'd spent 15 years perfecting. "This house isn't yours, Shane. It never was. And it never will be." His hand shot out faster than I expected, connecting with my cheek with a crack that echoed across the cemetery. Pain exploded across my face, and I tasted copper. Several people gasped. My mother stood frozen, her hand half raised as if to intervene, but terror kept her rooted in place. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I simply turned my head back slowly, touched my split lip, and smiled. Blood stained my fingers, and I made sure everyone saw it as I pulled out my phone and took a photo of my face, then one of Shane, still standing there with his fist clenched. "Thank you," I said quietly, my voice carrying across the silent crowd. I needed that. His face went purple with rage, but before he could move, my grandmother was there, her small frame somehow creating a barrier between us. She pressed something into my hand. A key, old and brass, and a folded paper. "Go, child," she whispered. "Go to Jesse Miller, 47 Oak Street. He's waiting." The house on Maple Street was worse than I'd imagined. What had once been my father's pride, a beautiful 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch and carefully tended garden, was now a deteriorating shell. The porch sagged, paint peeled in long strips, and the garden my father had lovingly maintained was a jungle of weeds and dead plants. Inside was even worse. The smell hit me first. Stale beer, cigarette smoke, and something else. Decay, neglect. The photos of our family that had once lined the hallway were gone, replaced by Shane's hunting trophies and pictures of him at casinos, on golf courses, living a life funded by money that wasn't his. My father's study, his sanctuary, had been converted into what looked like a sports bar. Big screen TV, a ratty recliner, empty bottles everywhere. I felt bile rise in my throat. But I wasn't here to grieve. I was here to document. I pulled out my phone and began photographing everything. The bills piled on the kitchen counter, all in my father's name, many marked "Final Notice." The mortgage documents I found in a drawer, with a signature that looked nothing like my father's shaky hand from his illness. Shane had been forging signatures for years. And then I found it. My father's secret drawer, the one he'd shown me when I was 12. "If anything ever happens to me, Riley, look here." I'd thought he meant sentimental items, maybe love letters to Mom. Instead, I found a ledger. Detailed, meticulous, in my father's precise handwriting. Dates, amounts, transactions. He'd been documenting Shane's theft for years. Every penny stolen, every forged check, every piece of jewelry pawned. My father had been building a case, even as cancer ate away at him. The last entry was dated 3 weeks before his death. "Riley will know what to do. She's stronger than all of us. My smart girl will make this right." I sat on the floor of his study, surrounded by evidence of Shane's crimes, and for the first time since I'd gotten that phone call, I let myself cry. Not for me, for him. For the father who'd fought in wars overseas only to lose the battle in his own home. For the man who'd protected his country but couldn't protect his family from the monster he'd trusted. But tears were a luxury I couldn't afford for long. I dried my eyes, collected the ledger, and every document I could find, and left. As I walked out, Shane was pulling up in a truck filled with furniture. My mother's antique dining set, the one that had been in her family for generations, was visible in the bed. "Where the hell do you think you're going with those papers?" he snarled, jumping out of the truck. "To see a lawyer," I replied calmly. "Jesse Miller. You might want to remember that name. You'll be hearing it a lot." His face went white, just for a moment. Then the rage returned, and he lunged at me. I was ready this time. I'd taken self-defense classes for years, preparing for this moment. I sidestepped, and he crashed into the porch railing, which splintered under his weight. "Careful, Shane," I said, already in my car. "These old houses aren't as sturdy as they used to be, just like your lies." Jesse Miller's office was nothing like the sleek corporate firms I was used to in Boston. It was small, cluttered with law books and case files, and smelled of coffee and old paper. But Jesse himself was exactly what I needed. Mid-50s, gray hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a reputation in Columbus for taking on cases no one else would touch. He listened to my story without interrupting, examining each document I laid out on his desk. The original mortgage, showing my father and mother as joint owners with a clear clause requiring both signatures for any major changes. The forged documents Shane had created, trying to add his name. The ledger. The photos of items being sold. My grandmother's testimony about watching Shane systematically strip the house of valuables. When I finished, Jesse sat back, steepled his fingers, and looked at me for a long moment. "You've been planning this for a while, haven't you?" 15 years, I admitted. Since the first time he hit me and my mother chose him over me. Jesse nodded slowly. "Riley, what Shane has done is not just morally reprehensible, it's criminal. Fraud, forgery, elder abuse, possibly even identity theft. We can bury him. But I need to know something first. What do you really want? Justice or revenge?" I didn't hesitate. "Both." A small smile crossed his face. "Good, because you're going to get it, but it's going to get ugly. Shane isn't going to go down without a fight, and your mother is going to be caught in the crossfire. Are you prepared for that?" I thought of my mother's hollow eyes at the funeral, the way she'd flinched at Shane's voice, the years of phone calls that never came, birthdays forgotten, a daughter erased because it was easier than standing up to a monster. "My mother made her choice a long time ago," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "I'm making mine now." Over the next week, Jesse and I built our case like a military campaign. Every day brought new evidence, new witnesses willing to come forward now that someone was finally standing up to Shane. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who'd lived next door for 40 years, had been documenting everything. She brought me a shoebox full of photographs. Shane loading my father's coin collection into his car. Shane selling my grandmother's china set at a garage sale. Shane bringing women to the house while my father was dying in the hospital and my mother was at work. "I tried to tell your mother," Mrs. Patterson said, her hands shaking as she handed over the photos. "But she wouldn't listen. Or couldn't. That man has her so scared, Riley. I hear her crying sometimes, late at night, through the walls." I added the photos to our growing file, my rage crystallizing into something colder, more focused. The bank was harder. Shane had been clever, opening accounts in my father's name, using his social security number, forging signatures. But Jesse had connections, and we found a sympathetic manager who'd been suspicious of some of the transactions. She couldn't give us the records directly, but she could confirm our suspicions and point us toward the proper legal channels. "This account here," she said, pointing to a statement. "Multiple withdrawals, always just under the reporting threshold. Classic money laundering behavior. And these transfers? To offshore accounts. Your father, a retired Marine on disability, supposedly had accounts in the Cayman Islands? I felt sick. Shane hadn't just stolen from my father, he'd been using him as a front for something bigger. The worst discovery came at my mother's school. I drove there on a Wednesday afternoon, remembering how proud she'd been of her job teaching second grade, how she'd light up talking about her students. The principal, Dr. Martinez, remembered me. Riley Matthews, my God, you've grown up. I heard about your father. I'm so sorry. Thank you. I was hoping to ask you about my mother. How is she doing? At work, I mean. Dr. Martinez's expression shifted, concern replacing warmth. Riley, your mother has been struggling. She's a brilliant teacher, but lately, she's been coming in with bruises. Making excuses, missing days. And 3 weeks ago, Shane came here. He was drunk, belligerent. He screamed at her in front of her students, accused her of hiding money from him, said terrible things. What did you do? We called security, had him removed. I tried to talk to Lydia, offered her resources, support. She just apologized and begged me not to call the police, said it would make things worse. Riley, I think your mother is being abused, has been for years, but she won't accept help. I thanked Dr. Martinez and left before she could see me cry again. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. This was bigger than theft. Shane had systematically destroyed my mother, isolated her, beaten her down until she couldn't see a way out. Part of me wanted to blame her, for choosing him, for not protecting me, for being weak. But I'd worked with enough abuse victims in my volunteer work in Boston to know it wasn't that simple. Shane had done to her what abusers always do, made her believe she deserved it, that she was worthless without him, that leaving would be worse than staying. I couldn't save her if she wouldn't save herself, but I could remove the monster, and I would. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I'd been trying to track down my father's old Marine buddies, the men he'd served with, the brothers he'd talked about with such pride. Shane had told everyone they'd abandoned Dad, that they didn't care. Another lie. I found Dave Macmillan through a veterans Facebook group. He owned a bar near the old military base, a quiet place where veterans gathered. I drove there on a Thursday evening, my heart pounding. Mac was behind the bar, a stocky man with a gray buzz cut and kind eyes. When I introduced myself, his face went pale. Riley? Bill's little girl? Oh God, we tried to find you. After he got sick, we tried. Shane said you'd run off, wanted nothing to do with your old man. Shane lied. I pulled out the letters, the photos, about everything. We moved to a quiet booth, and I told him the truth. About Shane's abuse, the theft, the isolation. Mac's face grew darker with every word. That son of a bitch. Bill knew. Near the end, he tried to tell us something was wrong, but we thought it was the cancer, the pain meds. Shane was always there, always controlling who could visit, what was said. We thought he was being protective. Do you have anything of my dad's? Anything Shane might not have gotten to? Mac's eyes lit up. Wait here. He returned with a metal box, military issue, dented and old. Inside were my father's war journals, his dog tags, a Medal of Valor, and his watch. The watch I'd given him for Father's Day when I was 10, saved up for months from my allowance. Bill gave this to me 2 weeks before he died. Made me promise to keep it safe, said someday you'd come back for it. He also gave me this. Mac handed me a sealed envelope, my name written in my father's shaky handwriting. I couldn't open it. Not there, not yet. I thanked Mac, gathered the box, and was almost to the door when he called out. Riley? Whatever you're planning, whatever you need to take that bastard down, you call me. Bill was my brother. We don't leave family behind. Not again. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. That night, in my hotel room, I finally opened my father's letter. My darling Riley, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry. Sorry I got sick. Sorry I couldn't protect you from Shane. Sorry, I was too weak to throw him out when I should have, but I wasn't too weak to fight back in the only way I could. Everything he's done, I documented it. The drawer in my study. You remember. The evidence is there. I also recorded him, sweetheart. Phone conversations, arguments. I hid the recordings in my old toolbox in the basement, in the false bottom. I couldn't stop him while I was alive, but I can help you stop him now. You were always the strong one, baby girl. Smarter than all of us. I know you'll make this right. I know you'll protect your mother when I couldn't. I'm proud of you, Riley. I'm so damned proud of who you've become. Don't let Shane win. Don't let him take our home, our family, our dignity. Fight, baby. Fight like a Matthews. And win. I love you forever. Dad? I held the letter to my chest and sobbed. For the father I'd lost twice, once to Shane's manipulation, and once to cancer. For the years stolen. For the battle he'd fought alone, dying and desperate, but still protecting me the only way he could. The next morning, I went back to the house with Mac and Jesse. Shane's truck was gone. We went straight to the basement, to the dusty corner where Dad's tools had been. Most were gone, sold off, but the old red toolbox remained, probably because it was dented and worthless to a pawnshop. The false bottom was exactly where Dad said it would be. Inside were 4 cassette tapes, labeled with dates, and a small digital recorder. My hands shook as I handed them to Jesse. "This is it," Jesse said quietly. "This is what we need." We listened to them in Jesse's office. Shane's voice, drunk and vicious, threatening my father. "You think you own this house, old man? It's mine. Everything's mine. You're gonna sign over that deed, or I'll make Lydia's life hell. You want to see your wife hurt? Want to see her lose her job? Her dignity? Sign it." My father's voice, weak with illness but steady. "This house is for Riley. It's her inheritance. Her future." Shane's laugh was cruel. "Riley? That little bitch ran off. She don't care about you. I'm family now. Me and Lydia. And you're going to give me what's mine, or I promise you, Bill, you won't like what happens." There were more tapes. Shane bragging about forging documents. Shane threatening to hurt my mother if Dad talked. Shane admitting to taking out loans in Dad's name, running up credit cards, gambling with stolen money. "He's confessing to everything," Jesse said, awe in his voice. "Bill set him up, kept him talking, recorded it all. Can we use these in court? Ohio is a one-party consent state. If Bill was part of the conversation, he could legally record it. These tapes are admissible. Riley, this is gold." We filed for an emergency restraining order and an injunction the next day. The hearing was fast, held in front of Judge Patricia Hendricks, a stern woman known for her no-nonsense approach to family law. Shane showed up with his lawyer, a sleazy-looking man who'd clearly been hired on the cheap. Shane still had that smirk, that arrogance. He thought he'd won. He thought I was just a little girl playing dress-up in her business suit. Jesse presented our case methodically. The mortgage documents, showing the forgery. Mrs. Patterson's photographs. The bank statements. My father's ledger. The tapes. When Shane's voice filled the courtroom, threatening my dying father, I watched his face drain of color. When the tape played him admitting to fraud, to theft, to blackmail, his lawyer actually put his head in his hands. But Jesse wasn't done. He called me to the stand. "Miss Matthews, could you show the court your face, please?" I'd left the bruise visible, covered it with minimal makeup. The purple and yellow stain Shane's fist had left was clear. "Where did you get this bruise?" At my father's funeral. Shane McAllister struck me in front of witnesses when I told him the house wasn't his. "And this isn't the first time he's been violent with you, is it?" "No. He started hitting me when I was 14. It's why I left home at 16. Why I've stayed away. I was afraid of him." Shane's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Hendricks silenced him with a look. "Miss Matthews," the judge said directly to me, "do you have any proof of past abuse?" "I have my medical records from when I was 15. A school counselor's report. I was too scared to press charges then, but the documentation exists. And I have this." I pulled out a photo, one I'd kept hidden for years. Me at 16, face swollen, black eye, split lip. I took this the night before I ran away. I kept it to remember why I could never come back while he was here. Judge Hendricks studied the photo, her expression hardening. Then she turned to Shane. "Mr. McAllister, you disgust me. You've stolen from a dying veteran, abused his daughter, and by all accounts, terrorized his widow. This court grants the emergency injunction. All assets and properties in the names of William Matthews or Lydia Matthews are hereby frozen. You are prohibited from accessing, selling, or transferring any property. You are to vacate the premises on Maple Street immediately. A restraining order is granted, effective immediately. You are to stay at least 500 feet from Miss Matthews, her mother, and the property at all times." Shane exploded. "You can't do this. That's my house, my money." "Bailiff," Judge Hendricks said calmly, "remove Mr. McAllister from my courtroom, and if he violates this order even once, he'll find himself in jail." Shane was dragged out, screaming threats, his lawyer scrambling after him. I sat in the witness box, trembling with relief and residual adrenaline. Jesse turned to me and smiled. Phase 1 complete. But Shane wasn't done. That same afternoon, my mother called, her voice panicked. "Riley, he's here, at the school. He's drunk, he's screaming. Please, I'm scared. Lock yourself in your classroom, call 911. I'm coming." I grabbed Mac, who'd been waiting outside the courthouse, and we raced to the school. Police were already there when we arrived, but we could hear Shane's voice, raging and incoherent. "Lydia, get out here. This is your fault. You and that bitch daughter of yours. Come out here now." When we pushed through the crowd, I saw him, wild-eyed, disheveled, holding a bottle in one hand. Security guards were trying to talk him down, but he was beyond reason. Then I saw my mother, standing in the doorway of her classroom, tears streaming down her face, looking at Shane with an expression I'd never seen before. Not fear, not love, disgust. No, she said, her voice small but growing stronger. No, Shane. I won't come out. I won't listen to you anymore. I won't let you hurt me anymore. It's over. Shane roared and started toward her. He didn't see me, didn't see Mac, didn't see the police officer moving in from the side. When the officer grabbed him, Shane swung the bottle, connecting with the officer's shoulder. Everything happened fast after that. Shane was on the ground, handcuffed, screaming about his rights. An ambulance was called for the officer, who fortunately wasn't seriously hurt. My mother collapsed, and I ran to her, catching her before she hit the ground. I'm sorry. She sobbed into my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Riley. I should have protected you. I should have chosen you. I was so scared, so weak. You're not weak, I told her, holding her tight. He made you think you were, but you're not. You're here. You're alive. You're free. The police arrested Shane on multiple charges: violating the restraining order, assault on a police officer, public intoxication, and disturbing the peace. As they put him in the cruiser, I stood with my arm around my mother, and I made sure he saw us. Made sure he saw that he'd lost. At the police station, I held my mother's hand as she gave her statement. For the first time in years, maybe decades, she told the truth. About the abuse, the control, the fear, the financial manipulation, the isolation. How Shane had convinced her that leaving would mean losing everything, that she was worthless without him, that no one would believe her. I let him turn me against my own daughter. She whispered, fresh tears falling. What kind of mother does that? One who is trying to survive. I said gently, Mom, I understand now. I didn't then, but I do now. He's a predator. He knew exactly how to break you down. But it's over now. You're safe. Am I? She looked up at me with hollow eyes. Riley, I don't know how to be safe. I don't even know how to be me anymore. Then we'll figure it out. Together. But first, we need to make sure he can never hurt you again. Jesse met us at the police station with papers. A divorce petition. A formal property claim. And something else. I did some digging, he said. Shane's been busier than we thought. I have a contact at the FBI who specializes in financial crimes. I showed him some of what we found. Riley, your father's ledger, the offshore accounts the bank mentioned. Shane wasn't just stealing from your family. He's been running a money laundering operation, using your father's name and identity. This is federal. How federal? Prison federal, 20 to 30 years federal. But we need more evidence. We need the source of the money, the full trail. The house, I said suddenly. Dad said he documented everything. What if there's more? What if he found Shane's operation and hid evidence? We got permission from the police to search the house, this time with a forensic accountant and a detective. What we found in the basement, hidden behind a false wall that we only discovered because of water damage, changed everything. A safe. Inside were ledgers dating back 15 years. Bank statements from accounts in my father's name that I'd never heard of. USB drives full of encrypted files. And cash. Stacks and stacks of cash, easily over $200,000. Holy shit, the detective breathed. This is organized crime level stuff. The USB drives were the key. My father had somehow gotten Shane's computer, copied everything and encrypted it. It took the FBI's tech team 3 days to crack it, but what they found was damning. Shane had been running an illegal gambling ring, laundering money through fake businesses, using my father's identity to open accounts and credit lines. He'd been doing it for years, getting bolder, sloppier. Special Agent Sarah Jenkins became our point of contact. She was thorough, professional, and clearly excited by the case. Riley, your father built us an entire case. I don't know how he did it while dying of cancer, but he's given us everything we need. Shane McAllister is going away for a very long time. The full trial took 3 months to prepare. In that time, my mother and I began the painful process of rebuilding our relationship. She moved into my hotel, then into a small apartment Jesse helped us find. We started therapy, separately and together. I thought I was protecting you by pushing you away, she admitted in one session. Shane said if you stayed, he'd hurt you worse. Said he'd make sure you never got into college, never had a future. I thought if you hated me, you'd stay away, stay safe. Why didn't you just leave him, take me and go? I tried. Once, when you were 12. He found us at my sister's house in Toledo. Beat me so badly I was in the hospital for a week. Told me if I ever tried again, he'd kill me and make it look like an accident. I believed him, Riley. I still believe he would have. I wanted to be angry. Part of me still was. But I also saw the truth. My mother had been in an impossible situation, making impossible choices, trying to save what she could. She'd failed me, yes. But she'd been failed first. The trial was a media circus. Small-town veterans family versus conman. It had everything. Money, abuse, justice, redemption. Reporters camped outside the courthouse. Shane's lawyer, now replaced by a public defender after Shane's assets were frozen, tried everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. Jesse presented it all. The forged documents. The stolen money. The The abuse, the money laundering, the identity theft. My mother testified, shaking but strong, about years of abuse. Mac and the other Marines testified about Shane's lies, how he'd isolated my father. I testified about the assault, the childhood abuse, finding my father's evidence. But the most powerful moment came when they played my father's voice in court. One of the tapes, the last one, dated 3 days before he died. I'm recording this because I might not have much time left. My name is William Robert Matthews, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, retired. I'm dying of stage 4 lung cancer. And I need to make sure the truth is known. Shane McAllister has been stealing from me, from my family, for 15 years. He's been abusing my wife and my daughter. He's used my name, my identity, my service to this country to commit crimes. I couldn't stop him while I was alive. I was too weak, too sick, too scared of what he'd do to my girls. But I can stop him now. This recording, the evidence I've gathered, it's my last mission, my last fight. For my daughter Riley, who deserves better than what I gave her. For my wife Lydia, who deserves to be free. And for all the other veterans out there who might fall victim to men like Shane. I served my country with honor. I'm going to die with honor. And I'm going to make damn sure Shane McAllister pays for what he's done. Semper Fi. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Shane was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 15 years. He'd be nearly 70 before he could even apply for release. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something that might have been fear, might have been hate, might have been the realization that he'd finally lost. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just watched him go, feeling a weight lift that I'd been carrying for 15 years. After the trial, Mom and I returned to Maple Street. The house was ours again, legally and completely. But it needed work. Years of Shane's neglect had taken their toll. Maybe we should just sell it, Mom suggested, standing in the overgrown yard. Too many bad memories. No, I said firmly. This was Dad's house. His dream. His legacy. Shane doesn't get to take that. We're going to fix it. Make it beautiful again. Make it ours. It took 6 months. We hired contractors, worked with designers, did a lot of the work ourselves. Mom planted a new garden, this time including a memorial section for Dad, with his favorite flowers and a bench with a plaque. Gunnery Sergeant William Matthews. Husband, father, Marine, hero. I transferred to the Columbus office of my firm, took a pay cut but gained something more valuable. Time with my mother, and a chance to rebuild what Shane had destroyed. Mac and Dad's Marine buddies helped with the heavy work. They brought over Dad's things that they'd been storing, things Shane had never found. Photos, medals, letters. We created a study in Dad's honor, filled with his books, his service records, his memories. The house transformed. Fresh paint, new floors, updated kitchen. The garden bloomed. And slowly, carefully, my mother transformed too. She returned to teaching, this time at a new school where no one knew her story. She started smiling again, laughing. Being Lydia, not just Shane's victim. One evening, about 8 months after the trial, we sat on the porch swing my father had built, watching the sunset paint Maple Street in gold and orange. I got a letter today, Mom said quietly, from Shane, from prison. My whole body tensed. What did it say? He wants forgiveness, says he's found God, realizes what he did was wrong, wants to make amends. She laughed, but it was bitter. 25 years of hell, and now he wants forgiveness. What are you going to do? She was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out a lighter and the letter. I'm going to do what I should have done 15 years ago. She lit the letter on fire and dropped it in the metal fire pit we'd installed. We watched it burn, the words turning to ash. I don't forgive him, Mom said. Maybe someday I will, maybe not. But I'm not carrying him anymore. Not his guilt, not his violence, not his poison. I'm letting it all burn. We sat there as the last light faded, the letter reduced to nothing, and I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child. Peace. The final piece came a year later. I'd been going through Dad's things, organizing papers for the archives, when I found one more envelope, hidden in an old book. Inside was a letter to Mom, dated shortly before he died. My dearest Lydia, I'm sorry. Sorry I brought Shane into our lives. Sorry I trusted him. Sorry I wasn't strong enough to protect you and Riley. I know you're reading this after I'm gone, probably after Shane has tried to take everything. But I want you to know something. Riley is strong. Stronger than both of us. She'll come back. She'll fight. And she'll win. Trust her. Trust yourself. You are not weak, my love. You are a survivor. And when this is over, when Shane is gone and you're free, I want you to live. Really live. Laugh. Love. Be happy. Don't spend your life grieving for me or hating yourself for the choices you made. You did the best you could in an impossible situation. That's all any of us can do. Tell Riley I love her. Tell her I'm proud. Tell her the house is hers. But more than that, the future is hers. And yours. Build something beautiful from the ashes, my love. That's all I ask. Forever yours, Bill. I read the letter to Mom that evening. We cried together, mourned together, and then we made a decision. We established the William Matthews Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping veterans and their families fight financial fraud and abuse. We used some of the money recovered from Shane's accounts, combined it with our own resources, and created something good from all that pain. Mac became the director. Other veterans joined as advocates and counselors. We helped dozens of families in that first year, saved homes, caught scammers, provided legal support and therapy. The house on Maple Street became more than just a home. It became a symbol of survival, of justice, of the truth that abusers don't win, not in the end, not if people are brave enough to fight back. On the second anniversary of Dad's death, we held a memorial service. Not at the sad funeral home Shane had chosen, but at the house, in the garden. Mac brought the flag that had draped Dad's coffin, the one Shane had tried to sell. We raised it on a new flagpole in the yard. Friends came, family we hadn't seen in years, people who'd been driven away by Shane, neighbors, students from Mom's classes, Marines from Dad's unit. The yard was full of people who'd loved him, remembered him, honored him. I stood to speak, looking out at the crowd, at the house that was whole again, at my mother who was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in decades. My father was a Marine, I began. He served his country with honor. He fought for freedom, for justice, for the belief that right matters. When he came home, he thought the battles were over. He was wrong. The hardest battle of his life happened right here, in this house, against an enemy he'd trusted. And for a while, it looked like he'd lost. But my father was a Marine. Marines don't surrender. Even dying, even when he couldn't fight anymore, he found a way. He left us the tools, the evidence, the truth, and he trusted that we'd finish the mission. So we did. Shane McAllister is in prison. This house stands. Justice was served. But more than that, we survived. We healed. We built something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. That's my father's real legacy. Not the house, not the money, not even the justice. It's the proof that love is stronger than hate. That truth is stronger than lies. That family, real family, endures. I looked at my mother, standing beside me, her hand in mine. We endured, and we won. The crowd applauded. The flag waved in the breeze, and I felt my father's presence, not in sadness or regret, but in pride. That night, after everyone had gone, Mom and I sat on the porch one last time. "Are you happy here?" she asked. "Really happy? Or are you just staying for me?" I thought about it, honestly. I'm happy. This is home. Not the house, not Maple Street. You. Us. This family, we're rebuilding. That's home. She smiled and squeezed my hand. "Your father would be so proud of you, Riley. I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of us," I corrected. "We did this together." As I looked out at Maple Street, at the house that glowed with warm light, at the garden my mother had nurtured back to life, I realized something. Shane had tried to turn this place into a nightmare. Instead, we'd transformed it into a dream. Not the dream Dad had when he first bought it, young and hopeful and naive about the darkness that could enter a home. A better dream, a stronger one. A dream built on ashes, yes, but rising from them like a phoenix. Bright, unbreakable, ours. I'd come back to Maple Street for revenge, for justice. To burn down everything Shane had built on my father's grave. I'd done that, but I'd found something more. I'd found my way home, and this time, I was never leaving.